Imhotep GMP Training Academy presents History of the GMP. Tragedies create regulations. What is GMP? It is acronym refers to Good Manufacturing Practice, which is used internationally to describe a set of principles and procedures, which when followed by the manufacturers of medical product, help ensure that the product manufactured will have the required quality. GMP defines quality measures for both production and quality control and defines general measures to ensure that processes necessary for production and testing are clearly defined, validated, reviewed, and documented, and that the personnel, premises and materials are suitable for the production of pharmaceuticals and biologicals including vaccines. What is CGMP? The C in CGMP stands for current, requiring companies to use technologies and systems that are up to date in order to comply with the regulations. Systems and equipment that may have been top of the line to prevent contamination, mix-ups, and errors 10 or 20 years ago may be less than adequate by today's standards. A basic tenet of GMP is that quality cannot be tested into a batch of product but must be built into each batch of product during all stages of the manufacturing process. GMP is holistic process that control everything that can impact product quality. Good manufacturing practice resulted from a long history of the need for consumer protection. GMPs are regulations issued by the regulatory authorities to understand why they are the way they are. It is useful to look back at the history of FDA legislation and consumer protection issues. We can call the GMP history as Tragedies creates regulations. In this training we presents the most famous tragedies that affected the history of GMP. 1901, vaccines and antitoxins, collectively known as biologics, were made in animals. Hence the possibility of contamination was large. In 1901, 13 children in St. Louis, Missouri, died from diphtheria antitoxin that had been contaminated with tetanus spores. 1902, Biologics Control Act. This tragedy led U.S. Congress to pass a Biologics Control Act that required commercial manufacturers to demonstrate the purity, and later potency, of their products. The hygienic laboratory was assigned regulatory responsibility. This useful activity helped to protect its more politically vulnerable research activities. 1906, The Jungle novel by Upton Sinclair, describing the meat industry and its working conditions was to advance socialism in the United States, which led U.S. Congress to pass the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act, in addition to prohibiting mislabeled and adulterated food products. These two laws paved the way for all future consumer protection legislation. 1937, the Massengill disaster. It is also referred to as the sulfanilamide disaster, occurred in the U.S. in 1937, when 107 people, including many children, died after taking elixir sulfanilamide, a cough medicine. The cause of the poisoning was the sweet, alcoholic compound diethylene glycol, which was used as a solvent with the addition of raspberry-flavored antibiotic syrup. U.S. law in 1937 did not require a comprehensive review of toxicity before bringing a drug product to market. As a result, it was initially unclear whether sulfanilamide or the additives in it were responsible for the poisonings that occurred. It was only later, following research by Dr. Francis Oldham Kelsey, that the high level of toxicity of diethylene glycol was discovered. The pharmaceutical Massengill company was fined $26,000. The sulfanilamide disaster became a milestone in the history of consumer protection and is therefore important for the development of uniform guidelines and laws, the precursors to the later GMP rules. 1938, the Federal Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act was a direct result of the Massengill tragedy. By replacing the Pure Food and Drug Act of 1906 and giving the FDA considerably more powers and authority, this act would be amended in 1976 to include regulation for medical devices. 1941, Kickoff of GMP. The beginning of modern standards for good manufacturing practices can be traced to an incident that began in December 1940, when the Winthrop Chemical Company of New York put on the market sulfathiazole tablets contaminated with phenobarbital, sedative. Hundreds of deaths and injuries resulted. FDA revises manufacturing and quality controls rules for the beginning of what will later be called GMPs. 1957 to 1963. The Contergan disaster, thalidomide. One of the largest disasters involving a drug product in the Federal Republic of Germany occurred in the 1960s. The medication, which was produced by Grunenthal GmbH and contained thalidomide, Contergan, was intended to help with nausea and insomnia. However, harmful side effects resulted in a number of children being born with serious deformities. Put simply, a medication that had not been tested for all possible risks and side effects was brought to market in a number of countries. As a result, some 10,000 children around the world were born with congenital defects. The number of fetuses who died during pregnancy is unknown. Interestingly, the U.S. remained largely unaffected, as the FDA did not allow the medication to be imported. As a result, there are only 17 known cases in the U.S. involving harm caused by the drug. 1962. The U.S. Congress passed the Kefauver-Harris Drug Amendment. This amendment not only increased safety requirements, it also required proof of a medication's effectiveness for the first time, retroactively for all prescribed products approved since 1938. This laid the foundation for the statutory regulation of clinical studies along the lines of regulatory approval procedures and quality assurance measures involved in the development of drug products. 1969. Based on events and pressure from the FDA, the WHO formulated the first guidelines for the production of pharmaceutical products, the first GMP guidelines, with the goal of ensuring the traceability of the production process. 1970. The Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention, PIC, was founded in Europe by the EFTA, European Free Trade Association, under the title of the Convention for the Mutual Recognition of Inspections in Respect of the Manufacture of Pharmaceutical Products. The original goals of PIC were mutual recognition of inspections, harmonization of GMP requirements, uniform inspection systems, training of inspectors, exchange of information, mutual confidence. 1971. UK Orange Guide. Pharmaceutical manufacturing sites in the UK will be more than familiar with the Orange Guide. This British publication has for decades contained the requirements of good manufacturing practice. First published in 1971, the original Orange Guide contained British good manufacturing practice and was entitled, Guide to Good Pharmaceutical Manufacturing Practice. Not much more than 30 pages in length, this voluntary guide was an aid to manufacturers to understand the needs of the regulatory authorities' requirements for the manufacture of pharmaceutical products. Later editions followed in 1977 and 1983, with detailed requirements for manufacturing sites. 1972. In the U.S., a manufacturer's intravenous therapies were recalled from the market due to stability problems. The manufacturer was unable to reliably demonstrate the quality of its product through testing. 1975. CGMPs for blood and blood components final rule establishes minimum current good manufacturing practices for blood establishments in the collecting, processing, compatibility testing, storing, and distributing of blood and blood components. 1976. Medical device amendments. Incident involved a contraceptive device caused thousands of injuries, pelvic infections, infertility and some death, and product was taken off the market. A medical device amendment required manufacturers to provide FDA with safety and effectiveness data before marketing medical devices. 1978. In the U.S., GMP was set down in the form of a regulation in the U.S. Code of Federal Regulations, CFR, under 21 CFR 210 and 21 CFR 211. 1978. In Germany, the Medicinal Products Act, Arzneimittelgesetz, AMG, entered into force, serving as the statutory basis for protecting public health, in particular based on high requirements for the careful handling of drug products by the pharmaceutical industry, pharmacists, and doctors. It required a multi-stage approval process, thus revolutionizing the German market for drug products. 1979. U.S. Good Laboratory Practice. 21 CFR 58, Final Rule. Establishing good laboratory practices for conducting non-clinical laboratory studies that support applications for research or marketing permits for human and animal drugs, medical devices for human use, and biological products. 1980. Infant Formula Act tragedy. In 1978, manufacturer of infant formula reformulated 2 of its soy-based products. In 1979, infants diagnosed with lack of chlorides, hypochromic. Result: Congress gives FDA authority to set and enforce nutritional and quality standards. The food GMPs, 21 CFR Part 110, were finalized in 1980s. During the fall of 1982, for reasons not known, a malevolent person or persons, presumably unknown, replaced Tylenol extra-strength capsules with cyanide-laced capsules, resealed the packages, and deposited them on the shelves of at least a half-dozen or so pharmacies and food stores in the Chicago area. The poison capsules were purchased, and 7 unsuspecting people died a horrible death, resulting a revision of GMPs to require tamper-resistant packaging regulations for OTC, over-the-counter, products. 1985. In Germany, the new Pharmaceutical Company Ordinance, Pharmabetriebsverordnung, defined appropriate regulations in line with European law for the production of drug products from tissue preparations, known as tissue engineering. 1987. FDA Guideline on General Principles of Process Validation. Agency expectations regarding the need for process validation are outlined. 1989. The main GMP document of the European Union, EU, the EU GMP Guidelines, were published for the first time. They are based on Council directive which requires all EU member states to comply uniformly with GMP standards during the industrial production of drug products. 1990. ICH. The International Council for Harmonization of Technical Requirements for Pharmaceuticals for Human Use, also known as the International Conference on Harmonization, ICH, is established by the FDA, the European Commission together with the European Medicines Agency, EMA, the Japanese Ministry for Health, Labor, and Welfare, MHLW, and the trade groups the Pharmaceutical Research and Manufacturers of America, PHRMA, the European Federation of Pharmaceutical Industries and Associations, EFPIA, and the Japan Pharmaceutical Manufacturers Association, JPMA. At the first ICH Steering Committee meeting of ICH, the terms of reference were agreed and it was decided that the topics selected for harmonization would be divided into safety, quality and efficacy to reflect the 3 criteria which are the basis for approving and authorizing new medicinal products. 1993. The Barr Ruling. This ruling played a key role in fomenting discussion within the pharmaceutical industry about the GMP-compliant handling of out-of-specification analysis results, testing until the results coincide with the specifications, also known as testing into compliance. This is not permitted and is prohibited under GMP. 1995. The European Medicines Agency, EMA, or EMEA. It was founded as an agency of the European Union with its headquarters in London. It is responsible for assessing and monitoring drug products. Its task is to maintain and promote public health in the European Union by coordinating the ongoing assessment and monitoring of all human and animal drug products. It therefore plays a key role in the authorization of drug products in the European Union and the states of the European Economic Area. 1995. The Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, PICS. PICS was founded in 1995 as an extension to PIC, Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention, which was founded in October 1970 by EFTA, European Free Trade Association, under the title of The Convention for the Mutual Recognition of Inspections in Respect of the Manufacture of Pharmaceutical Products. 2002. Risk-Based Approach. GMP for the 21st Century. A risk-based approach was put forward for discussion and published in the U.S. However, this report was only later published as a binding requirement. 2007–2008 The heparin scandal. The anticoagulant produced in China was connected with 82 confirmed deaths in the U.S. and a number of serious allergic reactions, including 27 serious reactions following administration via injection in Germany. The company Baxter AG recalled all batches distributed in the U.S. by the Chinese manufacturer. In Germany, the company Rotex Medica GmbH was forced to remove its unfractionated heparin from the market due to the complications. Subsequently, manufacturers, including Sanofi Aventis, in other European countries, such as Sweden and England, as well as Australia, followed suit and also removed batches from the market. The cause was a substance, over-sulfated chondroitin sulfate, that was evidently added to the raw heparin intentionally in order to reduce costs, as it offers an enormous savings potential. The raw heparin that was used by all manufacturers came from China, where, according to experts, 70% of the global market is sourced. Experts believed that the reason for the failure to identify the quality flaws was excessive demands placed on the authorities tasked with oversight because of the dramatic increase in the overseas production of starting materials and finished drug products. Several updates done for the European Union GMP chapters and annexes to match the latest good manufacturing practices, for example. 2014, Chapters 2, Personnel, and 6, Quality Control, of the European Union GMP Guidelines were revised. 2015, Chapters 3, Premises and Equipment, 5, Production, and 8, Complaints and Product Recall, of the European Union GMP Guidelines were revised. Revision of Annex 15, Qualification and Validation, of the European Union GMP Guidelines. 2016, Revision of Annex 16, Certification by a Qualified Person and Batch Release, of the European Union GMP Guidelines. 2017, a new Part 4, GMP Requirements for Advanced Therapy Medicinal Products, of the European Union GMP Guidelines was published. Annex 13, Detailed Commission Guidelines on Good Manufacturing Practice for Investigational Medicinal Products for Human Use. 2018, Annex 2, Manufacture of Biological Active Substances and Medicinal Products for Human Use, of the European Union GMP Guidelines was revised. Annex 17, Real-Time Release Testing and Parametric Release, of the European Union GMP Guidelines entered into force. 2022, European Union GMP Annex 1 Revision, Manufacture of Sterile Medicinal Products. Reasons for changes. The GMP, GDP Inspectors Working Group and the PICS Committee jointly recommend that the current version of Annex 1, on the manufacture of sterile medicinal products, is revised to reflect changes in regulatory and manufacturing environments. The new guideline should clarify how manufacturers can take advantage of new possibilities deriving from the application of an enhanced process understanding by using innovative tools as described in the ICH Q9 and Q10 guidelines. The revision of Annex 1 should also take into account related changes in other GMP chapters and annexes as well as in other regulatory documents. The revised guideline will seek to remove ambiguity and inconsistencies and will take account of advances in technologies. Deadline for Annex 1 coming into operation. 25 August 2023. 1 year from the date of publication in Udrelex Volume 4. 25 August 2024. 2 years from the date of publication in Udrelex Volume 4 for Point 8.123, which is talking about lyophilizers and associated product transfer and loading, unloading areas. WHOTRS 1044, 2022. This is a revision of WHO Good Manufacturing Practices for Sterile Pharmaceutical Products, previously published in the WHO Technical Report Series, number 961, Annex 6, 2011. The revision was done in collaboration with the European Union and the Pharmaceutical Inspection Cooperation Scheme, PICS. The harmonized text will benefit the national regulatory authorities and manufacturers and save resources, thus improving patients' access to quality medicines. WHO TRS 1044, 2022 Annex 4 WHO Guidelines on Technology Transfer in Pharmaceutical Manufacturing. During the 55th meeting of the World Health Organization Expert Committee on Specifications for Pharmaceutical Preparations, expert committee members were updated on the annual consultation on good practices for health products manufacture and inspection, which took place in July 2020 over a series of virtual meetings due to the COVID-19 pandemic. During these virtual meetings, a group of experts made a series of proposals for future activities, including a possible update of the WHO guidelines on transfer of technology in pharmaceutical manufacturing. WHO TRS 1044, 2022 Annex 7 WHO Good Manufacturing Practices for Investigational Products. The objective of this update is to bring the guideline in line with current expectations and trends in good practices and to harmonize the text with the principles of other related international guidelines. Recap: GMP is the part of quality management which ensure that products are consistently produced and controlled to the quality standards appropriate to their intended use, and as required by marketing authorization or product specification. Good manufacturing practice resulted from a long history of the need for consumer protection. Early GMP regulations driven from tragedies. Historic events and milestones in the development of GMP. 1902, Biologics Control Act. 1937, the Massengill disaster, sulfanilamide disaster. 1938, the Federal Food, Drug and Cosmetic Act. 1941, kickoff of GMP, sulfathiazole tablets contaminated with phenobarbital. 1957 to 1963, the Contergan disaster, thalidomide. 1962, the U.S. Congress passed the Kefauver-Harris Drug Amendment. 1969, WHO formulated the first GMP guidelines. 1970, the Pharmaceutical Inspection Convention, PIC, founded. 1971, first edition of UK Orange Guide. 1975, GMPs for blood and blood components final rule. 1976, Medical Device Amendments. 1978, GMP became U.S. Code of Federal Regulations. 1979, U.S. Good Laboratory Practice Final Rule. 1980, Infant Formula Act Tragedy. 1982, Tylenol Tragedy. 1987, FDA Guideline on General Principles of Process Validation. 1989, the European Union GMP Guidelines were published for the first time. 1990, ICH founded. 1993, the Barr ruling. 1995, EMA founded. 1995, PIC extended to be PICS. 2007–2008, the heparin scandal. 2022, European Union GMP Annex 1 revision. 2022, WHO TRS 1044. Imhotep GMP Training Academy thanks you for completing the training on History of the GMP. Tragedies create regulations. Imhotep GMP Training Academy. Quality makes a difference.